Hello dear students, welcome to the CS department. This is the first video of the PUC second year syllabus. Here we are dealing the first chapter, that is typical configuration of the computer system. Okay, in this video we will be seeing these topics: the introduction, block diagram, motherboard's characteristics and the types. Okay, so let us start with the introduction. Now, when we are dealing with the computer system, some of the terms which necessarily have to be known are: first one, hardware. Okay, what is hardware and what is software? Correct. What are users? Who are users? And what is data? When we hear the word computer system, these are the some familiar words which come into our mind. Okay, just now we have to see the definitions of these terms. What is hardware? You all know this. You have already studied these in first year. Just it's a repetition. Okay. What is hardware? The physical components that we can touch and see in the whole computer system. That is hardware. Am I right? The physical components. Correct? So these are the hardware. For example, all the devices, input devices like keyboard, mouse, joystick, scanner, etc. and the printer, monitor, speaker, these are all the hardware devices. You can touch them, you can see them. Okay. So the physical components are called as the hardware devices. Now what are software then? What is software? Set of instructions. Those are called as programs. Correct? Set of programs that actually coordinate the execution of the computer or the processor. That is software, isn't it? These are the set of programs, okay, or set of instructions, we can say, which coordinate the execution of the processor. Okay, then who are users? The one who uses the hardware and the software. Us. We are the users, correct? And what is data? Data is the raw collection, correct? Raw collection means it is unprocessed collection of the things. That is data. When you process it, it becomes what? It becomes information, isn't it? Information is nothing but the processed data. But the unprocessed collection or raw collection of items is known as data. Okay, so these are some terms which you need to remember when you are getting introduced to the computer system. Okay, so I hope this is easy. I hope you understand this. So now coming to the second heading, that is block diagram of the computer. You have already seen this also in the first year, isn't it? So can you just recall? You can pause the video and you can draw the diagram yourself. Okay. So which comes first? First we have the input unit. Am I right? First we have the input unit. Correct? And then we have a CPU, a central processing unit, which in turn consists of two units. Those are CU and ALU. Am I right? CU and ALU. So these are interconnected always. Correct? And with CPU, you always have a memory unit. Am I right? You always have a memory unit. Correct? So this memory unit can be divided into two memories. You all know this, primary memory and secondary memory. Correct? So we have to see everything in detail. Okay, you should give at least 3 to 4 lines explanation for each unit. And at last we have a output unit. Correct? Output unit. Okay. So now, what is input unit? First one. Let us see the explanation of this block diagram. Can be asked for 3 months, sometimes. Okay. So what is input unit? Input unit is the unit that connects the external world to the computer. isn't it? You give the data to the computer through this input unit. Am I right? So external world is connected to the computer and the link is input unit. Which are the input devices? You can just name them here. Okay, like keyboard. Am I right? Then mouse. Yes. Which are the other input devices? You can list on yourself. Scanner. Correct. OMR, OCR, MICR. These are all the joystick. These are all the input devices. Am I right? Okay. So the second one is CPU. CPU. That is the central processing unit. It receives the data from the input unit. It interprets the data and executes as per the requirement. That is CPU, isn't it? What is the processor? It gets the information from the input unit. It interprets it and executes the program. Okay. So now this has got two units. CPU has got two units. One is control unit. Correct? And which one is the second one? ALU. What does it stand for? ALU stands for arithmetic and logical unit. Correct? Arithmetic and logical unit. So what is the function of control unit? It controls and coordinates the flow of instructions to transfer the flow of control. Okay. Now when the input is happening, the control has to be with it. Okay. In CPU, again, in the function itself, if the program is running, it will be having its subroutines, subprograms, functions, isn't it? So when the functions are being executed, the control has to be transferred from main program to the function. Again, from function to the main program. Now this all transferring, okay, of the control is done using control unit. It coordinates the whole system, you can see. Okay. And the second one is arithmetic and logic unit. Here the actual arithmetic and logical operations are executed. Okay. Arithmetic operations such as addition, multiplication, division, subtraction, mod, everything. Okay. Logical operations such as AND, OR, XOR, NOT. These all operations are done in ALU. So this is about your CPU, central processing unit. It is always associated with the memory unit. Now when it is giving the result, okay, CPU is generating the result for a program. It has to be stored somewhere, isn't it? And for that storage, we use memory unit. Okay. Now again, your memory unit is divided into primary memory and secondary memory. Correct? So primary memory means it is inbuilt in the computer. For example, which are the primary memory? You can say random access memory, read-only memory. Correct? RAM and ROM are the primary memories, parts of primary memory. Okay, many still cache memory is there and registers are there. Those are all built-in memory devices and they constitute primary memory. Okay, secondary memory means externally what you connect to the computer. Okay, for example, your hard disk, your CDs, your DVDs, your pen drive, USB, SD card, these are all the secondary memories. Correct? Fine. And the last one is output unit. What do you mean by output unit? This connects the computer back to the external world. The results are generated in CPU. Okay. Now it has to be given to the external world. External world means user. Okay. When it has to be given to the user, you use output unit. Correct? So this forms the link between computer and the external world. Am I right? So the examples of output unit you all will be knowing. Say monitor, speaker which gives audio as the output. Correct? And printer which gives hard copy as the output. And many other output devices are there. Okay. So this forms the block diagram of a computer. I hope this is clear. Okay. You have to explain each and every unit in 3 to 4 lines perfectly. Okay. And you have to write the examples for each unit. Am I clear here? So just pause the video, take down the block diagram and then let us go to the next topic. Yes, now the next topic is motherboard. Have you heard this word motherboard? What do you mean by motherboard? Yes, see, in our CPU, central processing unit, the processor is the main thing. Am I right? The processor is the main thing. So you have heard many processors Intel, okay, Snapdragon you hear, okay, quad-core processor you hear. So these processors have to be situated somewhere in your device, correct? So the motherboard is the PCB. What do you mean by that? Printed circuit board. Okay, the motherboard is the printed circuit board which contains all the electronic components like your processor, your memory slots, your bus, your video components. All these components are present on this motherboard. This is the basic circuit board. You call it as PCB, printed circuit board. Okay, this has got the space to contain the processors and many slots and your other electronic components, buses, etc. Okay, so that is motherboard. Now what are the characteristics of motherboard? Very important. What are the characteristics of motherboard? So you have to first write the definition. Okay, the printed circuit board that holds or that contains the processor, slots, buses and other electronic components on it is called as motherboard. This definition you have to write. Rewind it and see and write the definition first. And then go to the characteristics, which is normally asked for 3 marks. Okay, so there are 3 characteristics of the motherboard. Very important question this is. First one is form factor. Okay, second one chipset, and third one processor socket. So you need to remember these 3 characteristics. Okay, it is normally asked in every question paper. So what is form factor, what is chipset and what is processor socket? Just 1 or 2 lines if you explain, you will get full marks. So form factor is, it refers to the geometry, okay, or you can say dimensions or arrangement. Okay, so the characteristics of motherboard is it should have a form factor. Form factor means what? It should have a perfect geometry. It refers to the geometry, or you can say the arrangement. How are the components arranged on your motherboard? That is form factor. Okay, so it refers to geometry, dimensions or arrangement or electronic requirements on the motherboard. That is the form factor. Okay, then secondly, it should have a chipset. It should have a chipset. Okay, means it is a set of chips. Many chips will be there. Okay, those actually do what? The main function is to control the transfer of data within the devices. Correct? Within the chips, the data has to be transferred. Okay, now your chipset actually transfers or controls the transferring of data in external or internal devices. Okay, so chipset is very important. Chipset has to be there on the motherboard. But the heart of this motherboard is the processor socket. Means what? It should, the slot where you can insert the processor. The processor is mounted vertically on the slot called as processor socket, or a square slot will be there. On that, using the connectors also, your processor can be inserted, or it can be directly mounted vertically. So 2 possibilities are there. Anyhow, the processor has to be inserted, and that slot we call it as processor socket. Okay, so these 3 are the important characteristics of motherboard. You have to remember these 3 perfectly. Form factor, referring to the geometry and dimensions and arrangement. Chipset, which controls the transfer of the data, and the processor socket, socket, the slot where you can insert the processor. Okay, you have to remember this correctly. Now coming to the types of motherboard. Okay, the last topic of this video, that is types of motherboard. Here just I have mentioned in brief the points that you have to explain when you are writing about each type. Okay, you can just take them down once. Okay, so there are different types of motherboard: XT, AT, baby AT and ATX. Okay, so what is XT? Extended Technology Motherboard. You have to write this full form for everything. It is the Extended Technology Motherboard. Okay, so this was for the old models. Okay, old model motherboard where only 12-pin power connector were there and RAM, DIMM and ISA slots were there. Okay, RAM, you know, random access memory. So dual in memory module and industrial standard architecture. Now, what are these ISA slots, PCI slots? These all you will study in detail in the next video. Just you have to mention what all were there in the XT motherboard in older times. Okay, so this is Extended Technology Motherboard. For everything you have to write one example at least. Okay, Pentium 1, Pentium 2 and Pentium Pro processors were using XT motherboard. Okay, this is the first motherboard. Now second one is Advanced Technology, AT, Advanced Technology Motherboard. Your Advanced Technology Motherboard has a 20-pin PC. PC in sense power connector. I have written in short form. 20-pin power connector is there. Means power is connected. No, that pin will be having 20 pins in it. Okay, so that 20-pin power connector, and what all slots will be there? SDRAM, PCI, ISA, and a big 5-pin keyboard connector will be there. Okay, to connect the keyboard, you will have a 5-pin slot to connect it. Okay, on the motherboard. That is AT motherboard. And what is the example? Pentium 3 processor is the example for Advanced Technology motherboard. Okay, baby AT. Baby AT is the combination of XT and AT. Okay, combination of this Extended Technology and Advanced Technology gives this baby AT. Okay, so here these will be there. Whatever you have seen already in AT, these will be there. Apart from that, means in addition to that, IO ports, built-in input-output ports will be there. Okay, these all have to be there because it is the combination of XT and AT. So these all have to be there. In addition to that, IO ports, built-in input-output ports will also be there. Okay, you have to write this. It is a combination of Advanced Technology and Extended Technology. Then in the second point, write all what have to be there. And in addition to that, input and output built-in ports will be there. Okay, so which is the example? Pentium 3 and P4, Pentium 4 processors will be there in the baby AT motherboard. Okay, and the last one is ATX, Advanced Technology Extended. Okay, this is the new motherboard which normally we are using nowadays is ATX motherboard. Okay, it will be having somewhere 24-pin power connector will be there and many new slots come into existence. The processor socket will be of the form of MPGA processor socket and DDR-RAM, AGP slots. These are all the means advanced graphics will also be included in this motherboard, isn't it? Graphics card and everything has to be included. So some new slots are also coming into existence in ATX motherboard. The Pentium 4 machine. And what we are using now, dual core or quad core or i3, i5, i7, Intel processors, these are all the examples of ATX motherboard. Okay, so these are about the types of motherboard. I hope I am clear here. Okay, so in this video, we have gone through the introduction, the block diagram of the computer, the motherboard, its characteristics and types. In the next video, we will be seeing the structure of the motherboard. This video at last contains the assignments. Please take down, write them and send it to me. Okay, thank you everyone.